Hey everybody, coming at you early today. Gonna be doing Grifter from the Wildstorm imprint. Gonna share this over with the page real quick so everybody can see. Cool deal. Alright, now I'm going to be knocking this one out a little earlier than usual. I wanted to do something a little different today and kind of go at this a little earlier. Reason being is because of the fact that I wanted to try to get a new time slot and see how people responded to it and see if you guys like it earlier in the morning or not. And try not to be so late and get a better rhythm in my day because I'm doing so many launches and books and all that right now, and got to get this stuff organized and get it back to where you guys are more stable with the timeline as to what to expect. So I wanted to work on that a moment and knock this one out. Not to mention the fact that I'm really chawing at the bit to get this card done because I want to get this one inked up and ready for the sketchbook. And I'm working on it early today before lunch. Excuse me. And I wanted to get it out there for you guys. So, and I decided to go really cool and simple with this one. I'm not going too heavy. I will be detailing it out, but I'm not, like I said, I just didn't want to go overkill with it. I wanted to try to bring a little more of a relaxed sketch card feel to it today. But, I mean, this isn't the whole thing. Of course, I will be fleshing the jacket and stuff out, but just wanted to try something a little different. And I've been getting asked to do different characters and stuff, even though it's still DC, thanks to Jim Lee, selling the Wildstorm imprint over to that publishing house. I still wanted to do a little bit different angle on it. And get a little variety of characters involved because that's one of the things that a lot of people are griping about right now is because Marvel and DC are all over the television and all over the big screen, but so many independent comics are suffering because of the fact in both ways, because they're losing traction on what could be a big box office opening, and they're getting scarfed up for cheap by the studios, which is becoming a major problem these days. And then you have the other side of it, which is, the sales are off right now because whether people get turned off or wound up by the movies, they're starting to take it out on independents as well in kind for dropping, the pickup. And it's one of those things where we have to get back into the comic industry and say, okay, we're not going to take this crap anymore, and we're going to start producing a lot more work. And we demand the respect that the pros get in the mainstream stuff because we're still professionals nonetheless, even though we're independent. And you have to think about that and start messing with that in a different regard, because so many people go, I want to draw for Marvel and I want to draw for DC, and then they turn around and then they say, well, Marvel and DC won't hire me. Now what do I do? Well, you got to go off and work for independents, but remember the guys that you bashed on. Those are the guys that are going to hire you now, and you're going to have to go and basically, for lack of a better term, pucker up, because you're going to have to step back in and prove that you want to have the project. And when you badmouth people by saying, working for free, or, working for free sucks, or working for, independents, I don't do independents because I'm a mainstream comic artist and you're, small press. Well, that is a big deal. That is a huge deal. And I would love to work for a major company and do a project or two and build some stuff up, but I prefer working for independent comics because of the simple fact that I'm in control of my market and I'm in control of my business and my profile in my life, and it's a fine line. I mean, like I said, I never reject work from quality anyway, but still, you have to think about what you're doing and get this stuff out there. And it's happening really, really bad with this whole, I don't want to do independent comics because comics don't pay off. Well, how bad are you working? Are you running it like a business, or are you running it like you're a freelancer? And if you're a freelancer for yourself, you are going to have a totally different business aspect than someone like me that runs a company. You have to think about what you're doing and what you want out of it and what you want to provoke as a business following, because people are going to follow whatever you put out there and you say you are. And if you're misrepresenting yourself, that's your fault. You know what I mean? And a lot of people are doing it that way, and they say, well, it comes full circle to like when I was hiring these new colorists, they were saying, well, I need top rate. I need, $300-400 a page, but I'm not going to give you a 30-day turnaround like a pro that gets mainstream pay for, that kind of level of work and production. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, I'm not going to turn it around in a 30-day cycle. I'm not going to give you a finished comic book. Maybe 2-3 months down the line, you'll get a finished comic book. And, I found myself in a situation to where I was very, very upset at the idea of someone saying that they were going to do it and then not. And it slowed down my work because I had to counteract for their crap. I mean, I've got projects that I have to do on a monthly basis as well. And if you guys are going to be knuckleheads about it, then you get mad when I don't hire you for it. That's part of the problem. I mean, but then you got other guys going around saying, I don't work for free. I'll never work for free, and I'll never work for this company or that company, and I'll never work, for spec or back end pay or any of that. I do that kind of project all the time because I respect my friends and colleagues, and I want to get their books out, because I know in the long run, whenever I help them get their books out, what's going to end up happening is when they do need work, they're going to remember that I helped them, and they're going to come back to me for more of that later. So it's community over competition, and it's a different level of camaraderie that a lot of people are getting away from. And, I mean, I get it if it's not for you, but don't bash it to the point to where it ruins it for somebody else. And then turn around and say, I want to work for the big two. And then when you realize you're not good enough by their standards or their opinions, and you realize that you may need to step out and do something on your own, where are you going to be? Think about that. You're going to have to come back to the independent market. And I'll tell you the funny thing. Nobody ever starts out directly at Marvel or DC unless they're a bug up their shorts and it's 1989. Okay, that just doesn't happen anymore. Because the first thing they will tell you to do is go set your foot in the door of an independent or self-publish and make a fan base for yourself that they can profit off of. Because if you don't prove that you're ready, they don't want you. And that's a sad reality, but it's the way the market's gone. And the reason they've done that is, one, they want to see how hungry you are as a professional. If you've got the chops to make it happen for yourself, then they want to follow up on that pre-built fan base. Okay. For two, they want to make sure that you're professional enough to handle it and produce properly each and every month. That's the second part of it. So they're checking out your skills, and they're checking out the market fan base to see if you've got a following for what you do. And I understand that to an extent, but if you're talented enough to get it and you have a different voice than what they do, their politics are going to kick you out anyway. Understand that, and like I said, I'm not bashing on any publisher or anything by the way they do any procedure. I'm just telling you flat out the way it is. It's the reality of it. They're going to chew you up and spit you out if that's the case. So instead of doing that, build up your own work. You know what I mean? Build up your own following, build up your own fan base, build up your own book, because that's where you're going to end up anyway. 99% of you are going to end up that way anyway, especially with Marvel closing down in 2018, 2019, and going into their in-house selection and all that mess that they've been doing through Disney for the last couple of years, where the Disney talent search goes out and gets whatever talent that they see, playing off the same philosophy that I just told you about. If you build up your brand and you build up your interest, they're going to go out and absorb your property if that's what they want to do. That's what they did to Jim Lee. That's what they do to pretty much everybody in the industry. Warner Brothers and Disney have the same following as far as comics go, and that's exactly what they do. So understand that. And if you want to get into the big two, I'll tell you, go out and make yourself a mark first. And then they'll come running, and they'll buy up your properties and they'll absorb them, and then you won't have anything, and then they'll hire you for a paycheck and you'll be working for them for the rest of your life. And I mean, that's cool if that's what you want to do. But for me, as a comic creator, that's not what I want to do. I would love to work freelance for a couple of companies and get, some more stuff out there for those brands. I love working with my friends and colleagues and stuff. But what I'm saying is, if you're wanting to be a freelancer for life, remember that's what happened to Jack Kirby, and that's what he did until the day he died. I mean, he still had projects on the table the very day that he passed away. So if that's what you want to do, and that's your mission in life, and that's your goal, then awesome. But if you want to get comics to be the next Jim Lee or whatever, you're going to have to work your butt off, and you got to think about what you're doing to get there. Because it's not as simple as 1, 2, 3, I'm a comic artist. You have to work a lot of hours and a lot of hard dedication. And if you don't, you're going to suffer for it, because you'll either suffer in your relationships because you'll actually do it and then won't understand what's going involved because you didn't explain it properly because you didn't know what was involved, or B, you'll make it and you'll spend the rest of your days working for a paycheck for somebody else, or you'll be bouncing around from job to job as an underrated freelancer because of the fact that you won't be consistent and you won't do it. So you'll either make it moderately because you only work mild levels, or you'll make it into the indie market or the no-go fly list because of the fact that you got burnt out or blacklisted or tossed out or whatever because of the fact that you didn't do the work the way you were supposed to. That is a huge thing right now to make it in comics. Robert Kirkman making it into Image, that was a huge thing for the Walking Dead project, and that that was an influential thing where basically, I mean, he said this for years. He bugged the crap out of him, and then he lied. He ended up lying to Jim Valentino. He ended up lying to him when he was publisher to get in, telling him that he had an alien story twist to The Walking Dead, and there was no alien twist, and that's how he got that book published. It was sneaky and underhanded, but the thing is, the dude did what worked, and it's sad but true. Making it in is a fluke thing. Breaking in somewhere is a fluke. You have to earn your chops, and you have to be seen, and you have to have a fan base that they can support bringing you in and paying you for. And once you have that, it's a totally different world, but you have to get there. So understand that. If not, you need to be doing independent comics if it's a love for comics that you want, and you need to think about that and what you want to do. Start small, start 1 or 2 titles, and build it out, and go from there. The big thing is, if you don't have a fan following, though, they're not going to notice you at all. So you've got to do all the legwork. But if you do it at that point, why even bother going to those bigger companies unless you want to do like I did, and work for other companies that you are associated with, and work for, artists and writers and creators that that are in the publishing industry as well. Put it out there and see what happens. I mean, that's cool. That's cool if you want to work for other companies, but understand that you're not going to go in there and be the next Jim Lee or the next, overnight success because of the fact that these guys had to hound the crap out of editors, and they don't do that anymore. They don't accept that work. And these guys are part of why they don't do that. No fault to them. I mean, it's just the process because they don't want to accept it, and the submission process was a 100% fake. DC and Marvel both. DC used to incinerate their stuff in their boiler room, in the heater, in the furnace, in the basement of the building. Okay? They don't even open them. They just throw them out. That's why you'll get they'll check the address, you'll get a form letter, and then they just started burning them in the late 80s, I believe it was. They started just tossing them in, and they were done with them. And that was the end of it. Boom, gone. But then you have companies like Marvel, which had a submissions department basically to appease the fans and to tell them no. Okay? I mean, that gave you hope that you had a chance of being in their little clique or their little group. But the thing is, though, they never, ever, ever looked at that stuff as seriously pulling talent from. I mean, they pulled from their talent pools from people that got in with agents and got editors and got in front of them at Comic Cons. That's a whole nother level. They networked their talent, and a lot of it was outsourced. And they won't tell you that either, but a lot of it was outsourced. It was talent search people, talent hunters going out and finding people in other companies and then asking them to come along and work for them, which is basically talent scalping, but it's part of the process. It is par for course for what it is with the industry. And if you're not listed in those groups of talent pools, you're not going to get noticed. I mean, it's plain and simple. You got to be hardcore about it, and you got to produce. And the number one problem that I see with people all the time when they ask me, how do you get comic work, or how do you make comics, or this, that, and the other? I'm like, well, are you willing to put in 60, 70, 80, 120 hours out of, every week? How much time do you have in that? How much time are you willing to put in? How much, how bad do you want a family? Because you're going to pay for it in that time loss, because you're going to be you're going to miss a lot of school plays. You're going to miss a lot of functions. You're going to miss a lot of other stuff unless you're really fast and you're proficient. Now, you can speed up. Now, I don't want to bust the bubble, because you can speed up, because I'll lay out an entire book in one sitting. I'll take the script, I'll break down my thumbnails, and I'll build out the book, okay? And then I'll turn around and lay it out with those thumbnails across my desk. I'll lay them on a side desk I have over here, and I'll lay them all out. And, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down. And then I'll lay out the big 11 by 17 pages for the 10 by 15 life space on this desk. And I'll just go page, 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 and lay them all out in a big stack and then set them off to the side. Then I'll go back in and say, okay, I'm going to pencil today. I got it on the schedule. Pull out that book and pull out the entire finished book, and all the layout's done. All the breakdowns and the hard work are done. They're already edited and through the thumbnail process and then laid out on the page. Then I go in and draw out the pages, and that's why I finish them. So what you guys see in these 30-minute sessions of these cards is exactly the process that I use for building up my comic books. I go in and I lay out the entire book, and that's how I get so many books done so fast, is I'll draw like that for a couple of days and finish an entire book. And some people are like, well, how do you go off and finish an entire book like that and then, move on to the next one and stay consistent with your stories? Well, that comes into the writing process, and that's a totally different topic. Okay. That's handled through the writing process, is how I keep them unique. That's part of that creative leg of the race here. But as far as knocking stuff out, you can produce as fast as you want to, and everybody's like, well, how do you do that? Well, one, I work from home for myself. I don't have that problem. I do other things, of course, with my consulting work and stuff as well. But when I'm at the drafting table, man, I'm drawing, all day long for those sessions, and that's what I do. And I love what I do on both sides of my business, for consulting as well as for comics. But when people ask me if I'm a full-time comic artist, yes, because I put in full-time hours for that, no matter what other business elements that I'm working on. You know, because they say, oh, well, you're an author, or you're a consultant, or you're this or that. And I'm like, yeah, that's part of what I do. It's all me. It's all part of who I am and what I do. It's just my work level. I work the equivalent, and I'm not trying to talk anybody out of it, or rub it in anybody's face or anything weird like that, because that's not what I'm saying. But when people say, well, I can't produce a comic book, you know, oh, I don't have that kind of time. Well, why not? Why don't you? You're not investing your time wisely. Oh, well, I'd rather play this video game. Oh, well, you'd rather play that video game than have a family with your kids or your spouse, or at least get married, or at least have a dog, you know? Have something lively around you. I see that all the time, and it's like, well, what do you do with your time? Well, I come home, I work 40 hours a week, and then I come home and I have, you know, this job, and I have to rest for work tomorrow, and blah, 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 blah. And it's just excuse after excuse. And it's like, well, how bad do you want it? You know what I mean? How bad do you really want it? And you have to ask yourself that, and you have to commit to it. And when you commit to it, you have to hold up, because it'll show in your work real quick. When's the last time you finished a comic book? Oh, 6 months ago. Well, what are you going to do now? Well, I'm going to publish 3 issues a year. Well, how are you going to publish 3 issues a year when you only get 1 book done every 6 months? I mean, even if you publish on the quarter, 6 months is not an appropriate professional timeline for an artist to produce a comic book in that range. So, you know, be productive and plan for this stuff. I'll make that fall in line. There's where I ran over. But yeah, just get in there and get it done. I mean, that's the big thing that I hear all the time is, you know, well, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to do that. Well, I have 3 or 4 hour-long meetings with consulting clients a couple of times a week, and you know, how do you not produce a comic if you're not knocking it out? You know, get in there and draw. Stop complaining about it and start doing it. Oh, I don't have time to make a comic. Well, make time to make a comic. It's cause and effect. It's called cause and effect, okay? And the big thing with people is they don't stop to think about this. And I tell people this in both marketing and comics all the time. There's a process. It's cause and effect. Live by cause and effect. Because what you want is the effect. That's what you desire to have, okay? And we're not talking goal setting here. We're talking true cause and effect in results. So think about this. If you have the desire to make a comic book, that's an effect that you want. That's an effect. And you are the cause of that effect coming true or not. So if you're the one in the business saying, I want to draw comic books and create comic books, and then you're not doing the cause of that, which is to produce that comic book, which is to draw, you know, write, draw, color, letter, ink, layout, whatever you got to do, whatever your passionate part is to involve you in that comic. Oh, I want to write comic books. Well, then block time to write comic book. The reason you write out that comic book is because you block the time to do it. Block out the time to write that comic book. Make it happen. Make the cause the action step of the effect that you want, which is the comic book. Because if you're not causing it, then it's not going to happen, because it's what you want. You can't just twitch your nose and make it happen. You got to be able to get out there and get it done. So if you're wanting to do a comic book and you're not writing every day or drawing every day or creating every day, then no one is at fault. It's not your job. It's not your universe. It's not your wife. It's not your girlfriend. It's not your boyfriend. It's not your dog. It's you. Plain and simple. Cause and effect. You desire the effect that you want, and you cause it to happen via the steps and actions you take. Things happen in your life as an effect of what you do. That's why all these mystics and business and business gurus and all these inspirational mindset gurus, you know, like Tony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk and all these guys that are out there talking, you know, get in there and get in the game. The reason they're talking about that is because of the fact that they've gotten in there, and they know their confidence comes from the fact that they know they're causing it. Okay? And if you don't cause it, it's not going to happen as an effect. So think about that. I tell clients that all the time. If you want something, why haven't you done it yet? Well, what have you done to get it? That's my number one question to ask. Well, what have you done to get it? Well, I don't know what to do to get it. Well, then you're not going to get it because it's the effect of the result of what you're doing right now. So if you're working your day job instead of making comic books, you don't have comic books, that dream's not going to come true. If you're working on video games instead of drawing that comic book or writing that comic book or creating that comic, then there you go again. You get better at the video game, but you're not investing the time in the cause to create the effect, because if you don't draw it, it's not going to exist. If you don't write it, it's not going to exist. Same on down the line for every aspect of it. Think about that. Think about that. The number one thing I hear is, oh, I don't have time. Well, stop playing your $60 video game and go off, you know, the disc itself. I know the systems are $300 or $400. I'm not naive. Please don't twist that up. What I'm talking about is your favorite game in the moment. Send it back to GameFly or wherever you got it from, and get back out there and start drawing comics. That is a big deal. That is a huge, huge deal. Okay? If you're not producing, then you're not an artist. If you're not drawing every day, you're not an artist. If you're not writing every day, you're not a writer. You were a writer. You were a writer up to the last point that you wrote. So think about that. That's why I say that all the time. You know, if you're a writer, write every day. And if you're not writing every day, then you're not doing the job. You're not a writer. I'm sorry. If you're not writing every day, you're not a writer. I write every day. It may be an article. It may be a blog post. It may be a script. It may be whatever, you know, concept plotting. It may be lettering, scripting, whatever you want to do. You got to get out there and get it done, and you got to stick with it. If you're not writing every day, you're not a writer. If you're not drawing every day, you're not an artist. Not for that day. You can't claim it. I mean, you got to think about where you're at with that and get it done. And that's the number one problem I see with comic people right now, specifically. You know, you step into that path and that package, and you go, well, now I'm a comic creator because I created one script 3 years ago. Well, guess what? No, you're not. You know, you're only as good as your last project. And if you're not working, then you're not producing. And that's a big problem. That's a huge problem. Well, I'm famous. I was on Image, and I did this and I did that, and I created this book and that book, and it was great. And I got to work with Eric Larson, and it was great. And I got to do this and that and the other for 6 months, and it was great. And well, what have you done this week? What have you done since you got out of that? What have you done independently to keep you moving? What have you done the last month? You know, I hear that all the time, and it's just, you know, I get picked on about that all the time because I'm revamping my sites, you know, and I haven't launched anything out of Firestorm in a while. And it's like, well, you know, are you a comic artist? Well, yes, I am, because I produced this book and it's coming out so-and-so a day. But it's because people don't see it that makes it valid or not, you know. And you got to get in there and get in the game and say, okay, this is where I'm going to be at. And it doesn't matter if you're building a website, if you're writing a novel. It doesn't matter if you're trying to build a portfolio. Which, by the way, that's the best number one way for a comic creator to create something on a daily basis, is to always work on a portfolio. Be always standing, have always, all this work always standing. That's the way I want to say it. Thank you. It's to have standing orders for work like that. And, you know, the best way to do that, to fill up your portfolio and get in there and produce, is to do exactly what people say not to do the most, which is to work on independent comics for free. You think about this. If you build up independent properties, one, you're building up that portfolio. Two, you're constantly in the eye for working, no matter if you're getting paid for it or not in the traditional sense. Take it as an investment for yourself to build up a portfolio. And the easiest way to do that is to go on Digital Webbing or penciljack.com or one of those sites like that. Or Elance is a good one now for comics, because people are looking for professionals that way. Go on and build up a couple of pieces, a couple of independent scripts for some of these comic guys that need their stuff done. Go on there and promote that and do a couple of these projects and help them out. If you do that, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up kicking it out, because you're going to be like, well, I don't have a comic book to draw right now, and I'm not going to draw for free. Invest in the fact that you can show 4 or 5 different stories in a couple of comic books at 4 to 8 pages a piece for a 24-page comic book, and how many stories can you kick out in that range, and then show in your portfolio and say, I did this mini comic, or I did this one shot, or I did this web comic, or I did this independent piece. You may not be getting paid, but guess what? You're going to get paid in the end, in the long haul, because of the fact of the ROI on it, which is return on investment for what you've done. And I know that's an old school business term, and a lot of you guys may not know what it is, but it's called return on investment. And that's why I do, in my downtime, which I don't have a lot of, I try to help as many people as I can along the way to build out their comic books. Because if you get an independent comic that takes off, and you're the guy that behind that helped them get that start, where do you think they're going to go when they need that project to take off when it's paid? Where do you think they're going to go when they need to say, oh, well, this guy helped me out with this, my artist came in and helped me out and saved my butt when I couldn't get started with anybody else. Or if I, needed this artwork to go to Image and they told me I had to have an artist, well, this guy helped me out as a favor, and I let him use it in portfolio, and here's how it came out, and now we're famous and we're rich. Think about that. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. Nobody ever thinks about it from that perspective. So, you gotta broaden your horizons, and you gotta remember, as a freelancer, you're a business person, whether you want to be or not. Don't just say, I'm an artist, I have, I don't know a head for business. I don't have a head for business, and I don't know anything about it. If you don't, then you're dead in the water just as much as anybody else, because you got to hustle. Jim Lee went out to everybody at Comic Con after Comic Con after Comic Con, and he went out for 4 years, and nobody came back to respond to him. And then finally, he wanted to work for DC, but DC wouldn't give him work, and now they picked him up at Marvel and started giving him work. And then look what happened. He ended up having a good partnership in there as the co-publisher and creator of, the co-creation director of DC now, and he pretty much owns everything over there. I mean, he is a publishing partner in that company. I mean, yes, it's a corporate traded company, but or a public traded company, to put it correctly. But so what? The stockholders know, they know that brand is going to bring them money because he's tied to it. And it doesn't matter if he wanted to rock a paycheck or not. But that's his choice. And the dude's killing it and crushing it right now. And he may or may not pencil something. He may or may not pop up. But the thing is, he's stable. And everybody knows his legacy is intact. So think about that one. What do you want to do with your comic career? What do you want to do with your creative life? And figure it out, and stop beating around the bush trying to get into everybody else's pie, and start baking your own. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the easiest way to say it. Stop running up and stealing Marvel, looking to steal Marvel and DC's pie out of the windowsill. Make your own. Then you don't have to worry about it. You can have it anytime you want. Think about that. So there's so much of that crap going on right now. And like I said, I would love to work with Image, or maybe even a Marvel title, or maybe even a DC title. I don't know any DC titles that I would actually want to work on right now, because they're all pretty much locked up. But if I wanted to do something independent outside of Firestorm, would I be able to go over to Image? Sure, I would. I would have no problem with that. Would I be able to go off and do some work over there? Yeah, you betcha. Am I going to hold that back? Absolutely not. That would be stupid to cut that off. But, I'm not going to go in and live my life waiting for them to respond and hire me either. I'm not going to wait around for 10 years for them to find me. I don't have that kind of time to wait. I'm twiddling my thumbs going, hey, I'm going to work for Marvel and DC. Hey, yeah. No. I just don't work that way. I would rather get my book out and get my message out and get my stuff going rather than waiting on it. And hopefully, maybe down the line, I will be able to work with them at some point. But like I said, I've said it all along, you know, mainstream comics may not be my thing as far as that goes, because I'd rather have an independent press mark and have a voice rather than not have any say or do at all, because of the fact that freelancers are just freelancers. And you don't understand. You're not going to create, you know, you're not going to take your comic idea into Marvel and slip it in. It doesn't happen. They end up owning the entire property because you're a freelancer. So don't think you're going to slip in and become the next, you know, this, that, or the other, or the next Deadpool creator or whatever, because you got to remember, they own that property. They didn't give Rob Liefeld that property. He claims that on his own because of the fact that they give him credit and ability to do so, to keep him appeased at the time, because he was the one that created it. Well, you got to remember that, you know, he was a freelancer. They still own that. They didn't give him props for that. They didn't give him credit for that. They didn't give him ownership for that. He claimed it before they got it famous and said, you know, I created this one for Marvel, and that's where he's at. And that became the norm a while back. And people don't understand you can't go off and just do that anymore. You know, if you create a character for them, they tend to hush it up so that you don't build a brand for yourself for known for creating characters and styles and things like that, and then moving on. They tried to do that to get it more personalized, and that was Stan Lee stepping in trying to personalize it, but yet he didn't do that at the core of the time that it should have been done most, which was for Jack Kirby and a couple of those other guys when they created that cross, you know. And I love Stan, don't get me wrong. The dude's awesome, and he did a lot for comic books, and they were a tied force together. But, you know, as an artist and a writer myself, I see both sides of the coin. But the thing is, I think that, you know, those guys never got the recognition they deserved. But it is what it is. So anyway, we've been on here for a while now. I'm going to cut this off, and this is where we're at. We've got the Grifter. I hope you guys enjoyed it and dug it. I hope I didn't talk too much to turn anybody off today, or put them in a bad mood or anything, because that wasn't the point. Just, you know, bring in some different vantage points to the situation, and because I hear that a lot, you know, and just wanted to answer those questions, and I hope I did. But anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow with another one. So take care for the rest of the day. Hug somebody, smile at somebody, shake somebody's hand, make them laugh, make them smile, waggle your tongue at them, cross your eyes, do what you do. Make the place a better joint than when you found it. And with that, I say farewell till tomorrow. Talk to you later.